now recognizes Mr. Crenshaw for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. So the title of this hearing is Exposing the Environmental, Human Rights, and National Security Risks of the Biden Administration's Rush to Green Policies. That's an important title. I want to unpack that for a second. Environmental risks. Mr. Mills, you've got some great data in your testimony. Talk about the amount of material excavation needed for the equivalent amount of energy for quote-unquote green energy versus your more standard reliable energy sources such as natural gas. Also goes into the amount of land needed. Hundreds of times more land space needed for the equivalent amount of energy compared to traditional energy sources that actually turn on when you need them. So talking about environmental risks, that part of the conversation just gets ignored. So I'm glad we're doing this hearing to expose that. Human rights. A basic human right might be to turn the air conditioning on when it's really hot, to be able to turn the heat on when it's really hot. Energy security should be a basic human right, at least in modern times, a basic human right. Hasn't been for thousands of years. We finally made it one, and now we want to destroy it all. And claim that the energy sources that have given us all of the modern amenities that we have today are to blame for and are racist and are hurting people of color and hurting the disenfranchised. No, what will hurt the poor, what will hurt people of color, what will hurt the disenfranchised in our country would be energy insecurity. That will actually hurt them. And we can see the results. I mean, you look at California and its rush to green energy, 70% higher costs for their energy than the rest of the country. I wonder how the poor feel about that. In Germany, and their rush to get rid of their nuclear plants and basically deindustrialize, have 300% higher energy costs. They've had to resort to burning coal and wood, which has far more carbon emissions. So I'll add that to the environmental destruction of rushing to green energy. It actually has the potential, as we see in Germany, of increasing carbon emissions. Like, that's what's actually happening. And national security risks, well, if the lights don't turn on, that's obviously a national security risk. I don't think I need to flesh that out too much. Mr. Mills, maybe I'll start with some of your really interesting data points that you have in your testimony. I like this one. Analysis show that manufacturing a single battery, one capable of holding energy that is equivalent to 1 barrel of oil, actually entails processes that use the energy equivalent of 100 barrels of oil. Do you want to comment on that, and then some of the other data points you have as far as materials needed, land space needed, things like this that show that the input for these types of power production types are not what people say.
Thank you, Congressman. One of the things that is ignored generally in the debate, but the IEA should be commended for publishing excellent studies on this, as has the World Bank and many other international organizations. The underlying infrastructures required to make the minerals and materials to transport them are all hydrocarbon-based, coal, oil, and gas. The industries themselves that produce minerals consume 40% of all the world's industrial energy. And there is no path to replace coal, oil, and gas at scale globally in the industrial sector. What that means is when you produce an electric car, you're consuming oil and gas and coal before the car is delivered to your driveway, and therefore you're causing CO2 emissions. We actually don't have a very good number to know exactly how much it is. We know what the range is. And I'll commend Volkswagen and Volvo for publishing studies that illuminate that, and they point out that when you take that into account, you radically reduce the ostensible, dramatic reduction in CO2 emissions. And in fact, in some cases, as they pointed out, you can wipe out all the CO2 emissions from not burning gasoline. So when I was in Norway recently, which buys the most electric cars per capita at the moment, I pointed out that everybody that bought a Tesla, a lot of Teslas are very popular there, nice car, well made, beautiful engineering. What you've already done is exported somewhere between 15 and 20 tons of CO2 when you buy that one car. And you do cut CO2 emissions as you drive the vehicle on that hydropowered grid. If you drive it on an American grid or a German grid or a British grid, you reduce the CO2 emissions eventually, but only by 15 to 20%. So it's ignored in the emissions calculations, it's ignored in the geopolitics, it's also ignored in the cost calculations because the increased cost of hydrocarbons increases the cost of solar power.
And that's what we're talking about. In my last 10 seconds, I'll say, look, everything we're referring to here is it's a cost-benefit analysis. What is the benefit you're getting for the cost that you're incurring on people who can probably afford to pay it the least? So that's what this discussion is about. That's why Republicans push for nuclear energy, right? It's reliable and it's clean. We push for natural gas exports because it's reliable. It has an actual chance of displacing foreign coal and an actual chance of reducing carbon emissions globally in a very massive way. And we should be exporting more of it and encouraging more of it, not less of it. And I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back.